Hi, this is Roger the Wise. This video will be on demons, and it'll be on who and what they are, their level of power and influence over people, as well as how to protect against them, and various things that make people more open to their influence. Anyway, um, demons are essentially they're a class of like spirits or gods. Um, they basically compose like both those groups actually, as well as others. There, there's different species of them, you could say. So like, some of them are actually like fallen gods or fallen angels, and they still have a pretty extreme level of power, in that sense. And then others are more, you know, they're more so commonplace or more more ordinary, right? Or more, I don't know if that's the right word for it, more, uh, well, I mean, most of them are less powerful than that, right? There can be only so many, fallen gods and angels, right? So most of them, they have more ordinary power levels compared to like the higher level ones. Um, anyway, um, essentially, some of them, yeah, some of them are fallen gods and fallen angels, and yeah, they still have that level of power generally. And others are more mid-range. Yeah, that's a good word for it. Um, and then there are some that are lower range as well. And some of those other ones, my theory on them is that they're energies or currents of energy that eventually became self-aware. And at first that they weren't, right? At first, they were just unconscious forces, right? Energies. And then eventually, as those energies became were directed and moved, right? Then eventually they gained self-awareness, right? Kind of like the computer from Terminator, Skynet, or whatever it's called, right? Kind of like that, only in spiritual form, right? Similar idea. Um, but anyway, the next part will be on um, why are people obsessed with them, right? Because people, like, it seems like most people, they're like more obsessed with demons and entities like that, the darker ones, than they're interested in like angels or like gods or stuff like that, right? And well, that's a good question, but the answer is, a lot of people like to say it's because people are inherently evil, or have darkness in them, right? And I don't think people are inherently evil, but definitely people have darkness in them. But I don't really think that's the reason why people are more interested in them than more benevolent gods, right? I think the reason is because demons are essentially, they have a mixture of good and bad characteristics, right? So they're like people in that regard. People have a mixture of good and bad characteristics, right? Basically, every person has that, And so, the majority of people, they're more interested in demons because, subconsciously, they can relate to the demons better, right? They can, because, it's hard for, a lot of people to relate to high gods or angels or stuff like that, right? Um, or even the highest god or anything like that, right? Than it is for a person to relate to an entity who is flawed just like they are, right? But So yeah, that's why I'd say that's my opinion anyway, and why a lot of people they're more interested in demons than they are high gods or angels or stuff like that. It's because of the inherent imperfection, you know, that serves as a common ground between the two entities, right? The humans and the demons, right? So yeah. Moreover, another reason is because a person can gain power faster from working with them, like theoretically, than a person could gain power from working with higher entities like archangels or high gods or stuff like that. It takes longer to gain power and like the things, whatever it is that they want, um, when working with higher entities, right? So there's that reason too. Um, Although it's worth noting that in a theoretical sense, that the power gained from working with demons, it's more unstable than it is when working with higher entities. And yeah, but another reason that people like them is because, or more interested in them than other gods, is because um, some people they like having tests in their life. Like um, they like having challenging situations thrown at them, and demons they're more likely to do that than higher gods. Although higher gods will do it too, but it's just it's more of a common occurrence of demons. But anyway, that's why people are more interested generally in demons than they are in high gods. Um, Now on to the next part, which would be on why on things that make, or the next part will be on why um, the next part will be on ways that people make themselves more open to their influence. Um, so like what things make a person more open to demonic possession. Um, That'll be the next part. And first of all, demonic possession. How common is it, and and how can it occur? Well, demonic possession is actually extremely uncommon, extremely, very much uncommon. Um, what's common is demonic suggestion and influence. You know, that's common. That's very common. A lot of people are influenced by demons, um, and a lot of people are open to suggestion from demons. And the reality is that most people they can't tell the difference between their own thoughts and a demon, talking to them, transmitting a thought to them, right? The majority of people cannot tell the difference. You It's like, in those old cartoon shows where, you'd have a character and he'd be contemplating taking some action, a cartoon character or something, right? And, uh, it'd be a moral choice, right? And he'd have this angel on his one shoulder, right? And then he'd have a demon on his other shoulder, and they'd be both talking in his ear, and the angel would be saying, no, no, don't do that, and the demon would be like, yeah, yeah, do it, do it. They both be talking in his ear. He's like, which voice do I listen to, right? Well, I mean, there's a symbolic spiritual meaning to that. It seems funny, right? Because it's a cartoon. So many cartoons have done that a little bit, right? But the reality is that the reason why so many cartoons did it, and even the animators and the storytellers that did it, I'd be willing to bet that a lot of them didn't even, know why they put that in there, or they knew why they put that in there, but they didn't know the deeper significance of it, right? And it's just an unconscious thing that people, that people are expressing. They're expressing a spiritual truth unconsciously through art, through a cartoon, right? And a moral lesson as well, right? And that's where they have, like I said, the demon on one shoulder, whispering in the person's ear, before they make a choice, and then the angel on the other shoulder whispering in the person's ear before they make a choice, right? And I'm sure some of the people, that did those bits and cartoons and stuff, realized the deeper significance of it, before they did it. But I'm pretty sure that a lot of them didn't. And, it it was included partially because unconsciously they realized it, but they weren't fully aware of it. But essentially, that's how it works. Is that the majority of people, they don't really know, where the ideas in their head come from. Some come from their own head, right? Naturally, right? And others come from other sources, right? And some of these sources are good, and some of them are bad, and some of them are somewhere in between, right? And yeah, like I said, the majority of people, they don't know the difference. They don't know if they have an idea, and if it comes from a demon, they don't know. They wouldn't know it. They just think it's coming from their own head, right? And then there are other people, and then there are the few people that would actually recognize it, the source of where the thoughts are coming from. So yeah, essentially demonic possession is extremely uncommon. It's extremely uncommon. But demonic suggestion and influence, that's very common. It's very common. And it's a safe bet that, the majority of people are being influenced by them. And that's not to say that the majority of people are being influenced by all of them or anything like that, or any specific one. It's more so people have, um, just like everyone has, a different group of friends, right? Some people have, a smaller group or a larger group, and some people, they'll have a group of friends from this circle and that circle and this circle, right? So, most people, they don't have the exact same, number uh, and exact same friends, exact same persons as friends, right? So it is with people and spiritual entities. Some people, they attract certain spiritual entities, and other people attract other different types. And some people attract a lot of spiritual entities, and some people attract a smaller number of spiritual entities, right? Just like I said, some people, they have a lot of friends, and some people, they have a few friends, right? And generally people, they have different groups of friends, right? So it's basically the same thing with like spiritual entities, and that includes demons. Some, for whatever reason, demons, they're more drawn to some people than others, specific ones. Um, so one demon might be drawn to person A, and another demon might be drawn to person B, and so on and so on, right? So yeah. Um, so okay. Um, Next, I'm gonna go over things that make a person open to demonic possession, and what things don't make a person open to demonic suggestion. Um, Things that make a person open to demonic possession or influence, um, or more open to demonic possession or influence, because everyone more or less is open to it. Um, And some people, they're a lot more open to possession, and some people, if they're very open to a person who's like very open to possession, they're going to be very open to suggestion and influence as well. And then there are some people that wouldn't be very open to possession, and those people would be probably, well, they'd be somewhat less likely to be, they'd be somewhat less open to influence, right? And there's some people that they're basically like, I don't know, ascended masters or something, the prophets, stuff like that, kind of, who kind of Jedis, that kind of they're probably like the least likely type to be open to it, to possession or influence or suggestion. And those types of people, they generally have a high level of consciousness, and they're very evolved people. So they're not like run-of-the-mill types, And those are really the only types that are not very open to suggestion or influence from them even. Everyone else basically is open to influence and suggestion from them. So like I said, varying degrees. Like I said, some people, the average person is, I'd say the average person, under the right circumstances or the wrong circumstances, would be open to possession, but they'd have to be pretty extreme like circumstances, right? But and the average person, I'd say they're very open to like suggestion or influence, stuff like that. They're very open to it. And if under the wrong or right circumstances, right, then they'd be even more open to it. But anyway, that leads us to our next point, right? What makes a person more open to possession or influenced by demons? Well, for one, committing, evil acts would be, one thing that would make a person more open to it, to influence or possession, or having evil acts done to them, like being a person who's raped or sexually assaulted is going to be more likely to become possessed or influenced by demons, right? But I mean, it depends on the person, right? It depends on how evolved they are, right? But in a general sense, yeah, that happening to a person is going to make them more open to it. Murdering someone would make the murderer more open to it, because it's an evil act, right? And it's taking another person's life. It's pretty. There's a lot of dark energies involved in that, right? So that can definitely open more of a portal and stuff, if that's what you want to call it, between that realm and the person. Raping another person, yeah, that would leave the rapist more open to possession or suggestion. Drama and conflict, well, like if a person's like always involved in drama or always involved in conflict, a person like that would be more open to it, because they're basically the person who's involved constantly in drama and conflict with others. They're naturally in a more like negative and adversarial state, right? And they just and that makes a person more open to their suggestion and possession as well. Negative emotions in general make a person more open to it, to demonic possession and suggestion, like sadness, grief, fear, anger, things like that, disgust, those kind of emotions, because naturally, they're darker those are darker emotions, right? So if a person, is stewing in them for long enough, then it can make the person, it can align the person, and align, that's a good word for it, because basically the demonic possession and suggestion, it operates off of alignment. You know, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that a person who's like really holy, right? A person who's really holy, really good character, morally, strong, um, strong-willed, wise, stuff like that, right? Good characteristics, right? A person who has those characteristics, they're going to be, they're not going to align very well with the majority of demons, right? Because the person, that kind of person, they're, they're good, right? So demon would have, a general demon anyway, which the majority of them are, right, would have trouble um, aligning themselves to that person, that holy person's frequency, essentially, because um, it's like it goes like it's hard to, I'm trying to find the right words to explain this. Like there's a saying that person is the aggregate or the combination of, same thing, of their 5 best friends, the 5 people that they spend the most time with. That they say that the majority of people, they're a combination of the 5 people that they spend the most time with. And there's a lot of truth to that. Like people are influenced by others, right? So and people, and there's also a saying, birds of a feather flock together, right? And what does that mean? Well, obviously it means, people like attracts like, right? So people that are, people that hang out with a bad crowd, um, generally they're not, the best people, right? So fucking, and, people in person, even if person is decent, if they hang out with a bad crowd, then, they could get influenced by that as well, so um, people and entities in general are influenced by others, right? So, um, and you know, you don't really see very often. Um, to put it another way, you don't really see very often an enlightened master, hanging out with um, a convicted, serial killer rapist or something like that, right? It's not, I'm sure it's happened before, but, it's not something that is a regular occurrence. And that's because, there's not a lot of, common ground between those two, right? So that's how it is with people and spiritual entities in general. There has to be common ground in between them for them to have uh, more, what's the right word for it, more harmony between the two, and more of a, to create more of an association, and to create more of a reason that the two would want to associate, right? Because they've done scientific studies on this, and they say that opposites attract. That's not true, actually. Actually, it's similar characteristics that attract people to each other. And in friendship, it's the same thing. When people evaluate another person, when they're first getting to know them, they ask themselves basically in their heads, how much is this person like me? And then they base their decision on whether they want to associate with that person or not, based on their assessment of how much like themselves the other person is. That's how it works the majority of the time. Don't get me wrong, some people, they may be opposites and, fall in love and all that stuff, and, even get married sometimes, and there may be opposites there, best friends and stuff like that too. But in a general sense, the majority of the time, people, they prefer friends who are more like themselves. That's why they have that saying, birds of a feather flock together. Um, so that's how it is with spiritual entities and people too. It's that demons, they're not really going to get very far trying to influence a person who's holy, or a person who's, near that level, But a person who's more so general, or more so even below, more so a person who's more average in terms of their morality, or even below average in their morality, then, a demon could, prey on that, right? And that leads me to my next point. It's that, just a second here. Oh yeah, that's it. Anyway, a lot of demons feed off of negative emotions. Not all of them. Like I said, there's a lot of different species of them. So this is but a lot of them feed off of negative emotions. So for instance, with that being said, that explains my previous point a lot better, right? Because a lot more simply actually, because a holy person, or person who's more enlightened, they're not going to really have that negative, all those negative emotions as much as a regular person would, right? So there's not a lot that a demon, or most demons, could feed off of there. It's the same with people. Some people feed off of negativity and drama. There are a lot of people like that. And if you send positivity their way, then you'll kind of just kind of you'll kind of even have like a poisonous effect on them because they're so used to feeding off of a certain frequency of energy or feeling or emotions, right? That that if they taste the good kind after acclimating themselves to the bad, that it'll actually fucking make them feel wonky. you know um so yeah, like that's another reason why the majority of them, they can't they don't really bother trying to influence more evolved or more conscious people or more enlightened people. It's because their frequencies are different. One's positive and one's negative, right? Or one's positive, one's negative, and so, and moreover, even if their frequencies, even if that wasn't a factor, the person who's more of a good person, they'd be or more evolved would be a better word for it, more advanced, I guess, rather than but rather than labeling the person good or bad, more evolved or more advanced would be a better word for it. Yeah, those classifications. And so those people, like the higher people, they're not going to produce all the negative emotions that a person who's less evolved would. So there's less for them to feed off of, essentially, in more evolved people. So that's another reason why. Um, um, oh yeah, other things that leave a person more open to demonic possession or suggestion or influence. Um, Drugs and alcohol can do it too, can leave a person more open to it. And obviously that depends on how much is consumed, and all that, and the circumstances surrounding it and all that, right? Um, but yeah, like being a heroin addict, or crystal meth addict, like a bad one. Well, I mean, those aren't really great. I don't think there are a lot of casual users of those. I don't know, but fucking those things can leave a person more open to like suggestion or influenced by demons as well as possession. Um, um, Hanging out with bad people, people that are negative, people that are, into drama and gossip and stuff like that, that'll leave a person more open to like demonic influence and suggestion and even possession as well. Meat can do it as well. It depends on if it's ethically raised or not. Um, and I went over this in another video on meat. But essentially, to sum it up, is that the majority of the meat that's produced, the animals, they're basically tortured throughout their whole lives and basically abused and, you know, treated incredibly cruelly. So all those, and they suffer their whole lives. So essentially, all that negative emotion, all those negative energies, all those negative feelings, all that, all those negative experiences, they add up, and they're stored, in the body of those animals. What's the meat, that meat produced out? It's produced out of their bodies, right? So that, will make a person more open to demonic suggestion and influence and possession as well. Moreover, as well, this is another thing that can make a person more open to demonic suggestion and influence and possession. It's having sex with people that are, morally impure or bad people. So that can make a person more open to it as well. And another factor is, like with that, is that even if the people that, the person is having sex with are decent people, it doesn't necessarily mean that the people that those people are having sex with are decent people, right? So like sex it's an extreme transfer of energy between two people, you know, and that's why, a lot of people, like, they'll actually change more so to be more like their partners, right? A lot of cases. And it's why, for instance, girls, they like to wear, the shirts or the sweaters and stuff of their boyfriends. It's because unconsciously, they don't do this consciously. I'm not saying that. It's because unconsciously they want to wear that shirt or that, sweater or those clothes of their boyfriends. It's because they want to take in their partner's energy, right? And by wearing a person's clothes, then you can, take on their energy to some extent, because, clothes, they hold on to energy, especially, the more times you wear them, right? Like a person wears, that's why a lot of girls, they like to wear their boyfriend's favorite shirt. Why is that? Why don't they wear a shirt that's not really his favorite, Well, it's because the shirt that he wears it's his favorite. It has his energy on it, like more of it on it, right? Than a shirt that he, never fucking wears would have on it. I wondered that, back in the day, fucking, why the fuck did they fucking, like, that's my fucking favorite shirt. Well, my fucking shirt's a fucking, that I never wear, right? But there wouldn't be any point to that, because they're doing it because they want to fucking absorb your energy. Essentially, they want to, or they want to. I don't know if absorb's the right word. They just want to. Yeah, I guess that'd be the right word. They wear it because they want to take in, their partner's energy, essentially. So yeah, like sex, it's an extreme transfer of energy between two people. And so like, if you're having sex with people that are morally impure, like bad people, then that's their energies are going to rub off on you. You know, and I guess the best way to prevent that, condom use, because it prevents it prevents the largest source of the energy transfer of sex, and that would be between vaginal and penis fluids, right? Um, those are the main basically um, factors, or that's basically the main transmission method of sexual energies between two people, of energies between two people in the sex act. It's vaginal and penis fluid. And so a condom would does prevent a lot of that. But even still, there's there's saliva from kissing, there's body contact, right? Because the skin has pores in it, right? So there's other transmission methods of sexual energy, even if a condom is used. But a condom will, I guess, to put it, just to like make an example, I guess, sex without a condom would be 100% transfer of energy between two people. And sex with a condom would be probably like maybe a 50% transfer. So I mean, it's basically you're transferring less energy, right? When you're using a condom versus you're transferring more energy when you're not using a condom versus if you are, right? Anyway, those are the things that can make a person more open to demonic suggestion or influence or possession. Um, yeah, I think that's everything. Eating a bad diet as well in general would contribute to it, because eating a good diet, it's healthier, right? And if you're healthier, then it's all correlates. So if you're healthier body, you'll generally be a bit healthier mind, all factors being equal, all other factors being equal, right? So there's that too, right? And there's your environment. Yeah, if you're in a place that's has a lot of negative energy in it, or a lot of negative people around you, then that can make you more open to suggestion and possession and influence as well. So being abused can make you more open to suggestion and possession, influence. Being a victim of violence, I guess, yeah, those are some of the things that can make a person more open to it. I guess doing certain rituals and stuff like that, but it depends on like the type of magic that a person practices, like certain forms of magic and like witchcraft and stuff like that, that are like on the darker end of the spectrum. Those kind of things can kind of can make a person more open to it as well. Um, hmm, yeah, those are some of the things. Jealousy, but that's another negative emotion, like I said. Yeah, I think those are some of the main things that make a person more open to it. With that being said, there are things that a person can do as well to make themselves less open to demonic suggestion or influence, right? And those things would be, for one, wearing silver is good. And why is this? Well, think about it. Look at movies and TV shows and books that you watch, books that you read. Sorry. The movies and TV shows that you watch and books that you read and all that stuff, right? What do the heroes wear when they're fighting darker forces like vampires or werewolves and stuff like that, right? A lot of them wear silver, right? And what does that mean? You know, well, that's a symbolic. That's a symbolic. That's a symbolic message. You know, like what basically what they're saying in these parables or these stories, these legends, right? Is they're saying is that uh, because they're saying that in their stories that silver protects against vampires and werewolves. Well, what are those? They're unnatural, unholy, you know, they're called unholy creatures, right? So essentially, silver protects in general against unholy forces. Yeah. So silver is good for, it's not, you know, it's not gonna make a person 100% defended against them, but it's gonna make a person, you know, a little bit more harder to influence of them, right? By them, anyway. Um, and protective objects can help, like a cross, like um, whatever, you know, there's tons of religions out there, so whatever, you know, holy object or symbol, you know, a lot of religions have holy objects or symbols that they're said to, you know, protect against negative forces, because a lot of all cultures essentially believe in demons, or most religions and most cultures believe in demons, you know, in a historical sense, even if not all modern people believe in them. Um, So various holy symbols, the various spiritual symbols of protection, those will help. Um, various like holy or protective objects, those will help. Um, high gods and, you know, certain high gods and archangels will help protect a person against them if the person works with them, works with those entities, then they could protect the person from demonic influence. Um, Talismans, some, you know, certain, you know, magical talismans can help protect the person against them. Certain amulets from varying traditions and, you know, from varying people and stuff like that. Generally, these are created through the use of certain materials and sometimes at certain times, sometimes uh, with certain under certain circumstances. You know, so those things, they're generally created under a set of conditions that make them, that are supposedly make them more effective at helping a person, you know, be less open to demonic possession or suggestion or influence. But what's the number one way that person, the number one way that person can make themselves less open to demonic suggestion and possession and influence? Well, the number one way is by being a good person. That's the number one way. And so, like a person who's pure of heart, who has good morals, a person who, you know, doesn't, you know, try to screw over people, a person who has good values, a person who is honest, you know, a person who's authentic, um, a person who doesn't, you know, try to use, you know, deceptive means um, or morally impure ways of meeting their objectives, you know, then they're going to be less likely to be, you know, influenced by demons. They're going to be less likely to be open to their influence. So, like, the best way to protect is to the best way to protect for a person is to be the best person they can be. You know, is to be pure of heart and to be, you know, to make the right choices and to, you know, do good, endeavor to do good. And the more, moreover, another thing is that the more impure that a person's actions are, and the more the more impure place the person's actions come from, that'll leave them more open to demonic suggestion and influence as well. So that's why it's a good idea to make yourself, that's why it's a good idea to, always act out of a place of consciousness and compassion, right? And wisdom, in that way, then well, that way you'll be on a better trajectory anyway. You'll just be better. You'll make better decisions. You'll make better choices. You'll probably have a happier life. You'll feel better at the end of the day about yourself. And, you'll probably, very likely, very fucking likely, you're going to, pretty much assured, you're going to make a better, you're going to make a better difference in the world too, right? Oops. Sorry, played a video for a second there, Mary J. Blige. But anyway, hopefully that doesn't get copyright infringement. Jeez. But anyway, YouTube will flag my video, but oh well. Yeah, so, it's just making better choices, making better decisions, being a better person, all that will help you prevent being open to suggestion or influenced by demons. Also, another factor is, or another idea is that like some religious types, they think that they're not open to it, and that they can't be open to it because, maybe they go to church, or they, or they're religious, or, maybe they're Muslim, and they think, oh, I'm a Muslim, I can't, or I'm a Christian, or I'm a Buddhist, or whatever, right? And they think I can't be possessed by or influenced by demons because, I believe in God, or, whoever, right? But, the reality is that there's a lot of, religious people that do bad things, and so, faith in a higher God, in a relationship with a higher God, that'll help. It'll help, you a bit, but it's not going to do all the work. The majority of the work, like they say, is like saying that some religions, they believe that people have free will, right? And to a certain extent they do, and some people, they may have more free will than others, but with that being said, free will, it's how free will works is that, God will protect to a certain extent. But the person has to make, choices, good choices too, and the person has to, be a good person too. A person who, like they think they're protected by, some higher power just because, they regularly go to church or something like that. It doesn't necessarily work that way. It's about, the highest responsibility, the number one person or entity that is responsible for a person being influenced or not by darker forces is the person themselves. It's the person themselves. It's not their God, or, an object, or, or any combination of those things. It's the person themselves and the choices that they make, and how they live their life, and, their morality, and thoughts that they regularly have, and how they treat others, and, all these things, right? It's basically based on their character. God will protect to a certain extent if you have a relationship with him, but he's not gonna do all the legwork, because otherwise, he'd be like, if he had to do all the legwork, he'd be like, why am I even sending him down here to live his life if I'm supposed to live it for him? you know, that's basically, you know, because according to those traditions, right, like God, he sent people down here as a test, as a way for people to evolve and to advance and to um, become better and to, be good people and all that stuff, right? So if he had to do all the work in making people that, then it wouldn't even have been a point of him, sending us down here to this world. Um, it wouldn't even have been a point for him to have us incarnate as people, if he had to do all the work, right? So the ultimate responsibility is within each and every one of you yourselves. It's the choices that you make, and your character and your morality and all that stuff. It's what's inside you. It's not it's not an object. It's not some god. It's not the people you hang around with. It's not you know something that happened to you, or something that you might have done to a person or something like that. It's none of those things are the most important. The most important factor is yourselves. It's yourself. If you So the point is, if you're a good person, then you're going to be less open to it than the person who's not. The next part of this will be their level of power and their level of and their abilities. Um, Essentially, it depends. Like there are certain, like I said, there's a lot of different species of them, and some of them are more evolved than others, and some of them they have different moralities. They're not all fucking. They don't all. They don't all have this exact same moral compass. Like in a theoretical sense, some of them um, are like people in that they have a mixture of good and bad qualities, right? Like the majority of people do, right? And those ones, generally, their bad qualities are good qualities that have fallen out of balance, right? And that's just how exactly it is with people. The majority of people, um, even the ones that are bad, like or do bad things, those ones, generally, it's generally because of a good quality that's fallen out of balance. It's That's why they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and so, yeah, like the majority of them are like people, and that they're a mixture of good and bad qualities, right? And that's why a lot of people can relate to them more than higher gods or archangels, because the majority, high gods and archangels, they they have most of their qualities are good. Like the vast majority of their qualities are good. Like and they're more in balance, than an average person would be, quite a bit more so. And they're a lot more evolved. They're more refined. They're more conscious. They're more an archangel or a high god. They're more yeah. They're It's like comparing an entity like that to an average demon or an average person would be like comparing like a supercomputer to an iPhone. Yeah, a first generation iPhone. You know, it wouldn't. The supercomputer would blow it out the water, right? It's just how it is, right? In terms of its um, level of enlightenment and intellectual capabilities, right? So um, essentially, like the majority of people, they're not. They have a mixture of good and bad qualities, good and bad characteristics, and and um, you know, they're a little bit screwed up, and they're just kind of, and some of them are trying and some of them aren't, but the majority of them, they couldn't relate to a higher entity like an angel or a high god, because they're coming from a place of a lot of negativity. They have positive, like I said, the majority of people, they have positive characteristics and they have negative characteristics as well, right? They're kind of you know they have some really good qualities and they have some really bad qualities, and they have some qualities that they have are beneficial to themselves and or to others, and some qualities that they have are harmful to themselves or to others, right? So like a general person like that, they'd have trouble relating to an archangel or a high god, because it'd be like an ant trying to relate to a person. you know it wouldn't work very well, right? Because the ant's level of consciousness is so low that it couldn't even fathom the way that a person would think, right? So it is with people and higher entities, right? Or or spiritual entities, right? The majority of people, they couldn't relate to how an archangel would think or a high god would think. They can't relate, and they could relate even less to like how like the highest god, like Adonai or Jehovah or Yahweh or whatever you want to call them would think, right? So so, but demons, the majority of people, they can relate to that, right? Because like I said, they're a mixture of good and bad characteristics. Um, but yeah, onto their yeah, we're still on demons' moral natures, um, and like I said, it varies. Like there's so many of them, and there's so many different types that some of them they're like people. They just have mixtures of good and bad qualities, and they're basically neutral. They do good, they do some good, and they do some bad, and basically evens itself out. That's how it is with most people. You know, they do some good and they do some bad, and it just kind of evens out. And they don't really, in that sense, they're basically neutral. They do as much good for the world as they do bad. You know, so, and that's how it is with the majority of demons as well. And just with people, there are some people that are straight up evil. They're just terrible. There's like bad quality after bad quality after bad quality, right? And there's some demons that are like that too. They're straight up evil, right? So and then there's some that are more good than bad, you know, but they still have some bad in them. Because being a demon in general sense, that classification, it would mean that there are inherent bad qualities. So, um, but yeah, that's basically their morality. It's basically it depends on the entity that you're talking about, and the specific demon. But most of them are somewhere in between good and bad, and some of them, and there are some outliers that are mostly good, but still have some bad in them. And then and then there are quite a few still that they're basically just straight up evil. Yeah, and but yeah, that's basically how their moral compass is in general sense, in terms of classifying them as a species or something, or as demons, whatever. Um, um, they basically their morality, it's variable, just like people's are. And by being demons, their morality is it's a mixture of good and bad, just like with people. Um, but the proportions of the good versus the bad, it varies depending on which entity you're talking about. And yeah, and now I guess I'll talk about their relative levels of power and their relative like levels of influence or abilities and stuff like that. Some of them, like I said, are fallen gods or fallen archangels who still have that level of power. So some of them, like they have like a level of power that's comparable to an archangel or a high god. Some of them, and that would be like some of them, like the demonic kings and stuff like that. Some of them have a level of power that's that rivals that of a like even an archangel. Some of them, and some of them have a level of power that's like basically like equal to even an archangel. But they're very rare, and they're yeah, and they're generally not really gonna you know, bother the majority of people. But they might, you know, sometimes. But and then there are lesser entities that are more so that aren't as high as that, like the kings. The kings are the highest of them, you know, and, like to name a few, Belial and Baal and Paimon, Ejin, some of those ones. Those ones are like freakishly powerful. The mid-range ones, they're somewhat, and then, well, I guess I should, I started with the kings, right? So I should go down a level below that. The next highest level in terms of power would be probably like some of the ones that were like lower gods. So those ones, you know, they have they're powerful too, but they don't have, they wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't even try to screw around like an archangel or anything like that. And then there are more general ones that are more so young. They're younger, which means, you know, they basically they recently became self-aware. And recently, that can mean, you know, several thousands of years or tens of thousands of years. So they could still be pretty old, you know. But yeah, and essentially, like essentially the general ones, like the ones I talked about, mid-range ones, they couldn't really, they'd have a lot less power in terms of, and ability in terms of like possessing a person than like a king would. A king, if it wanted to like influence a person, it could. It wouldn't really matter who the person is, unless the person's like fucking like Jesus or Buddha or fucking, you know, Yoda or some shit, right? Yeah. But a demonic king, if they wanted to influence a person or, you know, suggest to a person things, they could easily. If they wanted to possess the person, they'd be most likely to be able to do it, and they could possess a lot of people if they wanted. But it's just something that fucking the majority of them don't really fucking bother with. Why the fuck do they care? They have that much power. Fucking, it's like, you know, why would I want to possess an ant? You know, it's like that's basically how it is, right? But the mid-range ones, the ones that are like comparable to lesser gods, those ones are more like, they have the ability to influence people and suggest to them to a higher extent as well. And they could possess a lot of people too, but not as many different types of people as like a king could, right? One of the kings could. But more general, like lower range one, they're generally going to have a hard time possessing a person, even if they wanted to, and even if they worked really hard at it. But some people they would be able to, but the majority of people they wouldn't. And in terms of suggestion and influence, they can suggest and influence things, but their influence and suggestions will be less strong. So in other words, like a demonic king, like Belial or something like that, if he wanted to influence a person or suggest things to them, then think of the cartoon analogy that I talked about. then the demon on that person's shoulder would be speaking a lot louder and a lot more clearly. And his words would be listened to a lot more than a regular demon would, right? So the degree that like a higher level one's influence can influence a person, it's based on their relative rank and their relative level of power, right? It's just like a person, like Adolf Hitler was really good at influencing people, right? He was better at influencing people than the average Joe was, right? So it is, with spiritual entities as well. The more powerful they are, and the more talented they are, then generally they're going to have easier time influencing, right? And their words will carry more weight, essentially. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say. Um, um, I don't think I have anything else to add here. But yeah, that's the general overview of demons. And oh yeah, here's another thing. I guess I should give an opinion on whether people should work with them or not. My opinion on that is that well, I mean, people, they're free to make whatever decisions they want, So I'm not telling anyone what to do or what not to do. I'm just giving my opinion. Take it or leave it. So in my opinion, there's enough inherent instability inside most people, inside their hearts and inside their minds, that working with a demon, it would be a bad idea, because it's just like I said, a lot of them, they feed off of negative emotions. So they'll try to create circumstances in the person's life to facilitate more of those negative emotions being created, so that they have more for dinner tonight, right? So my view is that the majority of people, they're too mentally and emotionally unstable, and they're not pure of heart, and they're not enlightened, and they're just and they're ignorant. So the majority of people shouldn't work with them, and because it could just exacerbate their existing the existing darkness or negativity that's already inside of them. And for people that who are more evolved, right? For them, for those people, they should probably work with higher entities, instead, like archangels or higher gods, like the planets or the stars, stuff like that. And God, those kind of entities, if they're of higher vibration. And generally, the low vibration, mediocre vibration people should work with those entities as well, because they're less likely to fuck with you, and they're less likely to they're less likely to they're less likely to make they're less likely to make a person into a worse version of themselves, right? So my view is that it's better to work with higher entities than with demons, for that reason, for those reasons. moreover, it's the idea of affinity. It's like, for instance, have you never known a person that they were a good person at one stage of their life, and then the person, maybe they got into a relationship, and they got a girl, for instance, who gets into a relationship with a guy who's a bit of an asshole, right? And then she gets with him, and she was a great person before that, before she met him, right? And then she gets with him, and then a year or two later, she's a completely different person, right? She's gone from being like a total sweetheart to a real piece of work, right? And this could happen to a guy too. I'm just giving an example, right? Where they get into the relationship with a wrong person, and the person just kind of fucking the person that they're in the relationships with, their negative traits rub off on them, right? So like that's another reason why people, I think, shouldn't work with them. It's because a lot of people shouldn't. It's because you know their negative traits can rub off on you, right? And but I mean, like, people hang out with people too, so and the majority of people, they sure as hell have negative traits. So I don't know, but yeah, that's just my view. I think people shouldn't work with them. I don't think the majority of people should. I think the majority of people, like I said, they're too unstable emotionally and mentally to begin with. And, just working with some of those, especially the darker ones, that can fucking, bring the instability that's inherent within people to the nth degree. That's what they talk about. That's what like Christians mean when they talk about original sin. It's the idea that sin is inherent within all people. It's in sin. It's another interpretation of that is that evil is inherent within all people. Good and evil, right? So like by working with negative entities and forces, it can exacerbate or amplify the existing evil or darkness that's inherently inside people to begin with. Right? And moreover, I guess I should finish with this as a piece of advice for people who want to work with them anyway. And that would be probably to my best advice regarding that would be to do your research first and to protect yourself. Because there's ways to protect yourself from them fucking with you, too much. And so here's my piece of advice. I'd say to do your research and do your homework on it, on interacting with them beforehand. And that means like reading multiple books, uh, there's YouTube videos on this stuff too, listening to experts on there and stuff like that, and doing your research and doing your homework on it first, and also doing your research and doing your homework on the entity whatever entity you wish to work with, so that because if you're just like, well, I'm gonna summon like Belial because his name sounds cool and fuck it, it's like, maybe not the best idea, bud. Okay, maybe get ask other people who've worked with him, if you know anyone who has, and their opinion on him. Look him up on the internet and see what other people who've worked with him have to say about him, and what he's like, and what experiences and that they can attribute to him that happened in their lives, and yeah, do your research on it first, and do your research on the entity, because like I said, some of them are like people in their morality. They're a mixture of good and bad, and they're basically neutral in the end, right? And some of them are more good than bad, but they still have some bad in them. And then there are others that are fucking like straight up evil. So it's like, so that's why you want to do your homework on it. So if you're going to do that, which I don't suggest you do, but if you do, do your homework and, be prepared and all that stuff. And, try to, try to purify yourself. Try to be a more pure person. Try to be a more morally righteous person. Try to be a better person. Try to be make better choices. Try to do less bad things. And if you do that, if you become a better person in preparation with working with them, then their negative traits will rub off on you less, and you'll be more protected against being negatively influenced by them. You'll be more protected against them being able to control you, and influence you and stuff like that, to make bad choices and make bad decisions and all that stuff, right? So yeah, that's another reason to be a morally good person, right? So anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts on demons, and hopefully it was useful or helpful. Yeah, signing off.